Hello and welcome back to Chapter 3. This is Part B, wherein we discuss patterns 4 and 5. These patterns, as you have discovered through your reading of Chapter 3, are quite similar to patterns 2 and 3. This is going to make our lives quite a bit easier. It's almost like 4 and 5 are the same patterns as 2 and 3. The only difference, of course, is the type of verb. So let's talk now about linking verbs and what makes them different. We call something a linking verb when its job, its task, is to join or link the concepts in the subject and subject complement slots. It links those concepts together. In this sense, be is totally a linking verb, right? It joins those concepts together. It's a linking verb. But since it's be, and be is special in English, we make it its own pattern. The benefit to us, though, of patterns 4 and 5 having linking verbs is that they're so similar to patterns 2 and 3. We just have a slightly different verb. Instead of having a be verb, we have a linking verb. A linking verb really is just a big fat equals sign. The thing in the subject slot and the thing in the complement slot are being equated with one another. That's what that weird thing with eyeballs is in the corner of your screen. That's a big fat equal sign. And that's how linking verbs work as well. So when we talk about the first linking verb pattern, pattern 4, we are thinking about a noun phrase, a linking verb, that's what v-link means up there, and an adjective. You'll notice that Bulldog has some sausage links, which are roughly the same as linking verbs. Just like in pattern 2, pattern 4 is joining the subject to an adjective in the subject complement slot. And just like in pattern 2, pattern 4 can have either an adjective or one of those amazing adjectival idiomatic prepositional phrases as the subject complement. But the major difference between 2 and 4 is that 4 has way more verbs available to it. Pattern 2 just uses be as its predicating verb. Pattern 4 uses linking verbs, and there are a variety of those, such as seem, appear, become, get, grow, prove, remain, and even turn. So if you see these verbs, you might think to yourself, I wonder if we are in linking verb land. You will also notice that verbs of the senses appear very frequently in pattern 4. Taste, smell, feel, sound, look. Verbs of the senses are great linking verb candidates. However, we do want to be on our guard. We do want to be on the lookout because a lot of these verbs can also function as transitive verbs, intransitive verbs, or both. To take just one example, the bulldog gets too hot versus the bulldog gets a bone. In the first example, the bulldog gets too hot. Get is linking bulldog and the adjective hot. But in the second example, bone is the direct object for the transitive verb. It's the thing the bulldog gets. So if you get confused about whether or not it's a linking verb, and this is such a fantastic trick, I can't recommend this strongly enough, just try substituting a be verb in its place. If it works, bang, you've got a linking verb on your hands. For example, the bulldog gets too hot. I could substitute the be verb into that sentence. The bulldog is too hot, and it would make total sense. Whereas if I tried to do it in the second sentence, the bulldog gets a bone, I'd come up with something different. The bulldog is a bone, which is obviously different than the original meaning of the sentence. So presto, that handy trick can tell you if you are dealing with a linking verb. Let's talk about what pattern 4 can look like when we diagram it. The linking verb patterns are also subject complement patterns. The adjective in pattern 4 is absolutely complementing the subject. So we are still going to be using that diagonal line pointing towards the subject. And if we're using an adjective, it's going to look just this basic. Of course, if we are using an adjectival prepositional phrase instead, the diagram is going to look a little more complicated. We will have our linking verb there in the predicating verb slot. We will have our subject complement slot with the diagonal slanting line. And then up on a pedestal in the subject complement slot, we will have the adjectival idiomatic prepositional phrase. This is exactly like pattern 2. The only difference is linking verb instead of be verb. I've taken the liberty of preparing a few sentences for practice for you also. Just like with patterns 1 through 3, you are going to be doing form and function here. So the students seem diligent. Well, in form, the students is a noun phrase, seem is a linking verb, and diligent is an adjective. In function, the students is our subject, once again. Seem is our predicating verb, and diligent is the subject complement. I've included a few more sentences for you to do form and function on, and also diagram in your homework, including Brad Pitt's face looked familiar. Let's talk now about pattern 5. Pattern 5, noun phrase 1, linking verb, noun phrase 1. We have this NP1 nomenclature again, and that's because pattern 5 is a whole lot like pattern 3. It also has a noun phrase in the subject complement slot. So just like pattern 3, the noun phrase in the subject complement slot here is also referring back to the subject. So in essence, the two noun phrases once again have the same referent. They're both NP1. The big difference, of course, is that in pattern 3, we're just using be, but in pattern 5, we are using linking verbs such as become, remain, seem. These are pretty common. You want to watch seem a little bit, though. Seem can be used by itself, but much more frequently it has a preposition attached to the end of it. So you could say, it seemed a miracle. That's pattern 5 for sure. But frequently you'll find yourself saying, it seemed like a miracle instead, and that's going to turn it back into pattern 4. And as always, you can just use that be verb if you get confused about whether or not you are dealing with a linking verb. Couldn't be simpler. Let's look at the pattern of diagramming for pattern 5. The diagram is not that complicated. Bless you, pattern 5. We just have a noun phrase 1 in the subject slot, a linking verb as our predicating verb, and then noun phrase 1, the subject complement, in the subject complement slot there with the diagonal line pointing back towards the subject. Pattern 5, bless you for your simplicity. I've written a few practice sentences for pattern 5 as well. The students became scholars. Well, in form, we have noun phrase 1, the students, our linking verb of became, and scholars. Notice it has the same referent as students. The students and the scholars are the same thing, so that's also noun phrase 1. In function, students is our subject, became is our predicating verb, and scholars is the subject complement. You can do form and function as well as diagrams for the following sentences, including, after lots of practice, Aaron Rodgers became a champion. You too can become a champion with practice. And linking verbs do take some practice, as do all these sentence patterns. But it's well worth your time to put that practice in. I have to say, I've noticed over previous semesters that linking verbs tend to get confused more often than transitive or intransitive verbs. People frequently mistake them for transitive verbs, and then as you will see, the entire diagram gets messed up because the diagram for patterns 4 and 5 looks totally different than for patterns 7 and 8. So anyway, be on the lookout. Practice those linking verbs. Cassidy says, keep up the good work, practice, 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 and you will have success linking all these concepts together. Keep it up. See you next time.